Good afternoon. Zimbabwe is heading to a two-day holiday of celebrations. The country's presidential inauguration has been cancelled until the court makes a decision on what the opposition alleges is a rigged vote. Well, our foreign editor Sophie Mokwena spoke with Ndlovu, who's the bureau chief of the Sunday Times in Harare, and she asked him what the constitutional court process actually holds for the country's future. And here's how that conversation went down.
I think the constitutional process is the last and final stop in this long drawn-out political contest. We do know that the results that the Constitutional Court will, or rather the determination that it will come up with, is going to be final. It can't be contested in any way by either of the political parties. So there will be finality, and we expect this in at least in the 14-day period that the Constitutional Court is expected to make a ruling and a judgment on the winner of the presidential election.
The president, no word from the president's side. And we had the MDC saying that they are ready, and ZANU-PF saying they are confident that MDC is going to lose this one. Why is the president perhaps mum?
I suppose because he may not want to involve himself directly, as also part and parcel of this entire court challenge. So what we're hearing really is the lawyers, the legal teams from either side, from the MDC side and from ZANU-PF side as well. Whereas also the MDC has been more vocal in terms of saying that they are confident that they have a very strong case, but the president himself has really taken a back seat, I suppose, just to allow the legal framework to take its course over the next 2 weeks.
Some people are saying perhaps he must give a direction in terms of the country, just to say something while these processes are currently being monitored by international community in particular. Do you share the same view?
I think there's really nothing much that he can say or do at this particular point. I think everything really is within the judiciary system, and the judiciary has to make a call and to make a decision. So there's really very little that he can do or say at this point in time. He may perhaps be saying some things to some of the people that are close within his circles, but to the nation, I think is trying to just continue his business as usual. I mean, tomorrow is going to be a public holiday, and celebration of heroes, and celebration on Tuesday as well, and of the defense forces. So there's really a semblance of just keeping up and doing things as normal as possible until the holiday finishes, and then we have the courts now sitting and making a determination on this issue.
Armed Forces Day on Tuesday, or Defense Day on Tuesday. Do you think he is likely to touch on what transpired the day after the elections in terms of how the army conducted itself?
I don't see that perhaps taking a front row seat at those celebrations. I think what he has already mentioned, I think after the results announcement, I think last week, where he indicated that he's setting up an independent commission to investigate what transpired. I think that's still the same line that will be adopted. I don't foresee a situation where there will be some public reprimanding of the security forces, and in particular on such a platform which is a national celebrated day. But I think definitely he's going to still stick to that approach of saying the independent commission must be set up, and then we wait to see what direction that will unfold.
And we're going to stay in Zimbabwe. SABC News spoke to Zimbabwean lawyer advocate Fadzayi Mahere, who shed some more light on the Zimbabwean plebiscite legal battle and the possible outcome of that challenge.
All it is every single presidential candidate, together with, I'm guessing, the electoral management body, ZEC, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and possibly the chief elections officer there too. Every presidential candidate is an interested party in a presidential election petition, because they've got an interest in the outcome, as it were. Most of them are very unlikely to have something to say. I think the two key respondents, the two key players, will certainly be President Emerson Mnangagwa and the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and its chairperson.
So, Zimbabwean citizens, what does it mean for them?
It's the last glimmer of hope. I think, some people hold some optimism that, the court will intervene because there are some very glaring irregularities that attach to the manner in which, various aspects of the election were conducted from, the before, the during, the after. A lot of things have been cited in that application. I did peruse it yesterday. So Zimbabweans are hoping, and I think that hope stems from the fact that, our court does have very wide powers in an application of this nature. From Section 93, the court can go as far as declaring a winner. So the court could come out of that application theoretically saying Nelson Chamisa is the guy. The court could say, the entire election was invalid, start again within 60 days. And the court can actually come up with some other order altogether. Those are the wide powers the court has in terms of Section 93. And I think that's where the hope comes from. And I think, what Zimbabweans are hanging on to at the moment is just the last bit of fight they believe they can have, because the Constitution and, elections are the only way we can change a government lawfully and properly. So I think people are holding on to this because, the fear of another 5 years of the same is looming large.
So you talk about the wide powers that the Constitutional Court has. I was an auditor one time in my life, and one of the things that used to be big is materiality. And so would they be considering, or what would they be considering, is these discrepancies, whatever they are, would they have had a material effect on the result, or is that something they don't worry about? They just say procedures weren't followed, it doesn't matter what the result was?
No, I think they will look at everything, and I think our electoral law is pretty deep. And so, there are all sorts of safeguards that have to be complied with. You start with the Constitution itself, which requires that the electoral process be transparent, be verifiable, be free, be fair, and also that all candidates participating have reasonable access to all material, including things like the ballot paper, which we all saw did not happen. The Constitution requires, I think, under Section 61, that the media, the state media, give everyone a fair chance. All of that plays into fairness. And then in terms of the actual strict procedures, the counting, the data, the stats, the numbers, all of that has to add up. So I think the court does have wide powers. They don't just look, it's not a window dressing exercise, or at least it shouldn't be a window dressing exercise, going through the motion, ticking boxes and saying, okay, it's done and dusted. There's nothing we can do. I think this is a real test for our, electoral law and the Constitutional Court, whether it will invoke the wide powers that the Constitution gives to it.
So there have been concerns in the past about the independence of the judiciary, upon which the Constitutional Court is a part. And the question is, as a practicing advocate, have you seen a strengthening of the judicial independence over time?
Absolutely. We win cases every single day in these courts. So certainly there is a hope that the courts will be independent. I think without any evidence that they won't be, I think we shouldn't jump to the conclusion or hang on to a speculation that they won't. Let's see how they handle and manage this case, and then we can deduce from there.
And coming